good people don't smoke marijuana.
I've known Larry for a long time.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana. Radio show. The medical marijuana for you and me. Ah, yeah, the medical marijuana. Whoa, 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 yeah, the medical. It's the medical marijuana show. You knew we know.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Medical Marijuana Radio. This one is for Saturday, the 6th of October, 2018. I'm your host, Larry Love. We're here every week to bring you the latest information on the fight for the use of medical cannabis and to try to get people away from alcohol and maybe have some recreational adult use cannabis as well. And, the news is just ramping up every week. This week, however, for the medical patients and recreational patients, I have Colby Zdak on, and he's from ExtractCraft. And we had him on about a year or so ago in regard to their home unit called the Source Turbo. But they have a new unit out now that will reclaim your ethanol so that it becomes a much more affordable way to make your FICO order oil at home. You can also use it to make reclaim all that alcohol and make shatter and other kinds of things as well. So we'll have Colby on with us just in the second half of the show. But as always, we have news for you, and we've got a lot of news for you. This first one is there's an outgoing U.S. attorney who in Colorado that just says legal marijuana is not what it's billed up to be. And of course, he's got a lot of false information in here. But here's the report.
Attorney for Colorado says our state is striking out when it comes to legalized recreational pot. Bob Troyer says marijuana has not produced the monetary benefits promised and has created a long list of problems. Investigator Rick Saunders spoke with him today, and he likens the pot rush, Rick, to the gold rush.
He does, Karen. The outgoing U.S. attorney says Colorado has been descended upon by those seeking wealth from marijuana and leaving behind a trail of problems ranging from underage usage to destruction of the environment.
Before he goes out the door, U.S. Attorney Bob Troyer has a message of caution for the public on marijuana. That message, it's not turned out to be what it was billed. Has it led to less crime?
Absolutely not. It has not led to a reduction in crime.
For example, he points to what he calls a booming black market for cannabis.
We have now, for the first time in the history of Colorado, become literally a theater of operation for international drug trafficking organizations.
He cites Chinese, Cuban, and Mexican groups renting or buying houses next door, growing pot and selling it out of state.
Marijuana can be produced in Colorado under the cover of the legalization scheme and sold back east at 3, 4, 5 times its value here.
And he says that is just the start.
Pot clubs, foreign investment, marijuana delivery services.
He points to businesses licensed by the state, but still violating federal law.
If they're still causing harm to the environment or to our youth or to a community, they should, in fact, fear federal prosecution.
He mentions disguised pot smoking devices sold to kids, part of the Wild West of marijuana.
To exploit the gold rush while it still exists.
I asked if the legalization of recreational pot in other states like California is taking off some of the pressure from Colorado. The answer? No sign of it yet. Live at federal court, Rick Salinger, covering Colorado First.
So what the U.S. Attorney doesn't tell you is that, there are studies out to say that teen use is not up. That's for sure. Look, it's like anything else. Lock up the medicine cabinet, lock up the liquor cabinet, lock up your cannabis cabinet. Yeah, that's right. Be responsible if you have kids in the house. Lock them up. Okay. Let's move around to another couple states. In New Jersey, businesses are looking to navigate their policies in the workplace regarding the use of cannabis.
It puts me in a significantly bad spot, and as well as for everybody, we work with.
She's a CEO with 17 employees at a company with a zero-tolerance policy for drugs, including marijuana. Businesses are scrambling with medical marijuana use already legal in New Jersey and a recreational use bill reportedly on track, according to the governor.
And I think it is sooner than later. I think the Senate president said something in the vein of trying to bring it to a vote on October 29. So that'll be later this month.
We have extreme concerns, and there is no protocol, and there's no set policies on what the guidance is. And because with marijuana use, it affects the brain, there's no proper test or screening if someone is or isn't under the influence, especially for employees. So how do you monitor that? What do you look for?
Business execs also wonder about random company drug screenings to detect marijuana use.
Our policy is that we're allowed to drug screen you. And if it's legal, then we have other issues with that about what would be the amount that's allowable, because it does stay in their system for up to 30 days.
CEOs brought those questions to a panel today at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital, Somerset. One answer:
in New Jersey, there's no protection for employees. In fact, employers don't have to make an accommodation for employees in the workplace with regard to medical marijuana.
So someone could be terminated?
Sure.
Attorney John Kuttner's with Weber Gallagher and specializes in marijuana law. He says companies need to know that New Jersey, unlike 8 other states, has no anti-discrimination provision protecting employees who are medical marijuana card holders.
There was a recent federal district court case wherein the judge ruled in favor of the employer against the employee who brought a case under the New Jersey law against discrimination, found they didn't need to make the accommodation for the employee.
Senator Joe Vitale sponsored legislation that would make it unlawful to take any adverse employment action against an employee who's a registered medical marijuana patient based on either the employee's status as a registry identification card holder or the employee's positive drug test for marijuana components or metabolites. It's still in committee. Another sticking point for businesses, the federal government still classifies marijuana as a Schedule I illegal drug with no approved medicinal purpose. If it's changed to Schedule II,
then we can do the trials. We can actually test it. And instead of in the realm of politics, why not let the scientists go at it like they do with every other compound? Do the trials and let the evidence prevail.
Right now we have funding from the federal government, which it is not an approved substance, so it puts us in conflict. So right now we would have to talk to an attorney.
So companies still walk a legal tightrope between state and federal marijuana laws. A Colorado congressman's drafted legislation to make it a states' rights issue, but action on that is months away. In Somerville, I'm Brenda Flanagan, NJTV News.
So it's amazing to me how a doctor like that was just talking about, now they can study it. Now they can study it. Well, how about they've been studying it, for the last 80 years, really heavy, and it's been a medicine for thousands of years, and they still want to study it. How about look to the studies out of Israel and other places in Europe and Spain and all over the place that the United States government has been funding the Israeli studies for years and years and years. So let's use what's there, and let's not wait and make people suffer when there's really something out there that can help people get better. It's ridiculous to use that as an excuse. Let's move up to the next state above New Jersey. Next door to New York, they had a meeting asking the public for input on legalizing recreational cannabis, and here's a couple people.
To legalize or not to legalize? That's the question lawmakers in New York State are asking the public to weigh in on surrounding recreational marijuana.
Yes, I traveled to Binghamton University earlier this evening, where state officials held a listening session to gauge the public's input. Take a look.
About 120 people packed Symposium Hall at Binghamton University's Innovative Technology Complex Tuesday night. Some people were there to observe, others to talk, where state officials were on hand to listen.
The goal is for us to gather input from as many community members across the state on input on a regulated adult use marijuana program.
I really kind of just wanted to listen to the community and see what the local Binghamton community had to say. I do think it's an important issue, and I think it's correspondingly pretty important to see what the community themselves have to say about it.
While some people were openly in support of the state implementing a recreational marijuana program,
I work with people that strongly support it, and I hope that this listening session will allow some of the people that may be on the fence or may be oppositional towards it to at least have a second thought and maybe move forward to saying, hey, maybe this isn't such a bad thing.
Others were totally opposed.
The unintentional exposures in children, which can and has led to hospitalizations. Marijuana use in driving, it's known to increase the risk of motor vehicle crash.
Earlier this year, Governor Andrew Cuomo appointed a work group to draft legislation for a regulated adult use marijuana program that the legislature could then consider. These listening sessions will help contribute to that effort.
All of the comments and input that we received has been gathered and will be gathered and shared with the regulated marijuana work group that is drafting the legislation.
The state is holding a total of 17 listening sessions. This was the 10th one tonight. Now, these come following the results of a multi-agency study which concluded the positive impacts of a regulated marijuana market in New York State outweigh the potential negative impacts.
Just because people say something doesn't mean that it's true. I mean, that there was a woman on that report that was saying that auto accidents are up because of cannabis, but that is not being proven correct. And there's actually studies that show that people may even be more careful while they're driving on cannabis. So, just because someone stands up in front of a panel of people and says something, we got to always call them out on the bullshit. Let's move from Jersey and New York over to Colorado, where everything gets done first there. We have a couple of interesting things here. First up, the Coloradans may cut hemp from the Constitution. And I'm not real sure if that's a good thing or not. We're going to have to ask our experts up there, like Veronica. But here's this report.
This November, voters will be asked if they want to remove hemp from the state constitution. This may seem like a way to curb Colorado's thriving hemp industry, but as KUNC's Esther Honig reports, supporters say Amendment X will keep Colorado competitive as federal laws may soon change.
In college, Garrett Haas majored in computer science, but saw more opportunity in agriculture. 2 years ago, he took over his grandparents' farm in Lafayette and replaced the fields of alfalfa with rows of hemp.
I have a few different varieties. These ones are T1 right here. They're Trump hemp is what they're called.
No, the plants don't bear any resemblance to the 45th president. In fact, at this point in the growing season, they look more like miniature Christmas trees. Like most Colorado hemp, this 5-acre crop will be used to make cannabidiol, or CBD oil.
Tinctures, oils, capsules.
It's the first year Haas expects to break even, and it's also an important election year for him and other hemp growers because of Amendment X. If approved, the definition for industrial hemp would be removed from the state constitution and put into the state statute.
I'm still a little confused of the differences in the constitutional versus the statute.
It's a complicated issue to unpack. For starters, laws in the state statute aren't as powerful as those written into the Constitution.
At first blush, I think it could appear as if we're trying to make hemp illegal again.
That's Democratic State Senator Steve Fenberg. He's a primary sponsor of Amendment X.
And we're by no means doing that. In fact, there's a chance that if we don't do this, the law could conflict in a way that it actually makes it so our hemp industry kind of suffers.
In 2012, Colorado became one of the first states to legalize hemp. It was written into the Constitution that industrial hemp cannot contain more than 0.3% THC. That's the same stuff in marijuana, its cousin plant that gets you high. But recently, the federal government has gotten serious about national legalization. This summer, the U.S. Senate introduced a bill, and it could have a different definition of industrial hemp than what's in our Constitution. Hunter Buffington is the executive director of the Colorado Hemp Industries Association. She says that would be a major setback.
So it's really good public policy to actually move it from the Constitution and put it someplace where it can be modified.
Laws in the statute can be changed by a state lawmaker, whereas changing the Constitution requires voter approval. That's why hemp was put in the Constitution in the first place.
It really was put there to protect it in the very beginning and to make sure that it wasn't going to simply be removed the next year.
That gave farmers the confidence to invest in the crop. But now, 3 years later, Buffington and Fenberg agree that Amendment X would give the state the flexibility it needs to keep up with the changing federal regulations. And as more states begin growing hemp, Fenberg says Colorado won't lose its edge.
We want to make sure we're not disadvantaged in a way that actually puts us behind in any way.
Still, Amendment X creates some uncertainty for growers like Garrett Hawes.
I sense that you're hesitant. You're like, I just want it to stay the way it is.
Yeah, kind of, pretty much. For at least a couple years, I don't want anything to change too much.
Like all of Colorado's hemp farmers, Hawes has built his business according to current regulations. He spent a lot of time and money growing specific types of hemp that don't produce too much THC.
So it's constantly testing and just make sure that each strain doesn't go over that percentage threshold.
But if the federal government changes the definition by, say, allowing for 1% THC, it undermines all that work. While he thinks there could be benefits to approving Amendment X, Hawes says as a business owner, the prospect of change has him feeling pretty anxious. Esther Honig, KUNC.
So, Veronica Carpio, if you're listening to the show today, if you could put a comment on the Facebook post of your feelings about moving it from the Constitution, I'd appreciate that. And let us know which is the right way to have this. Let's stay in Colorado and have another story here. Some Colorado cannabis growers want specific organic cannabis designation. We played a story about that last week from either maybe it was Oregon last week. But so here's Colorado.
Organic foods are huge here in Colorado, so it makes sense that the marijuana industry wants a piece of this action, and they're calling on the state for help.
Denver 7's Jace Larson joins us live tonight. Jace, these pot shops say they want to offer customers organic marijuana.
Yeah, that's right, and they want the state to regulate it, just like the feds do for organic fruits and vegetables. This whole thing, though, wouldn't likely be called organic, but perhaps something similar.
I'm very conscientious when I buy my fruits and vegetables.
Dispensary owner Amy Anderle is a little particular.
So why would I not want my cannabis to be cultivated the same way?
But as marijuana has become more and more mainstream in our state, she says her customers feel the same way.
Consumers deserve to know that there's organic and there's conventional.
At Legal near 6th Avenue and I-25, she says her grow follows organic standards and always has. But she doesn't feel she gets the independent credit that would make her shop and others like hers stand out.
I would love it if the state could come up with a designation that recognized organic efforts.
She and a coalition of other growers in Colorado are asking the state to create an organic-like designation for pot that's free of toxic pesticides and toxic fertilizers, as well as sewage sludge and GMOs. Washington State is already working on a designation calling it simply certified. California hopes to go further and specifically designate weed that's grown in a more environmentally friendly way. That is, using sunlight, for example, instead of energy-sucking lights.
I am a registered dietitian.
Jill Ellsworth runs a business that helps growers reduce harmful mold in their marijuana. She says that studies are mixed on whether organic fruits and vegetables are really better for you. But she says organic marijuana might be more appealing to some users. Here's her view.
Because when you eat it, you have your liver. However, when you smoke pesticides, when you smoke contaminated cannabis, that goes right into your lungs.
Amy says not enough people know about organically grown marijuana, so even though it costs her more to grow it, she can't charge extra for it yet. But she says if the popularity of organic food is any indication, organic weed could be the next big thing. Now, the state bans hundreds of pesticides that it says are harmful, but it only tests for the 13 most common ones. As of right now, it does not have any organic designation planned. And actually, as we mentioned, we probably wouldn't call it organic because that's the federal USDA word, and the feds consider marijuana, as many of us know, still illegal. Wow. Guys.
Definitely. We'll see how it plays all out. Thanks, Jace. We appreciate it.
I would certainly pay a little bit extra for organic, certified organic, clean medicine. Clean medicine is what we're talking about here. There will be a boutique industry with mom and pop growers, growing great stuff and charging more for it. It's definitely going to happen. The liquor industry, wine industry have higher end product, and it's going to be the same thing. All right, let's move over to Utah. In Utah, the governor calls for a special session following the Proposition 2 compromise that they made. It's pretty interesting. They're going to vote on a bill, and then after it's passed, then they're going to change things up and make it better for both sides, supposedly. So here's this report from Utah.
A big breakthrough in possible access to medical marijuana in Utah as Governor Gary Herbert calls lawmakers to a special session next month. The move comes as those for and against Proposition 2 have come to an agreement.
News specialist Ladd Egan's live at the Capitol tonight. And Ladd, how is this compromise different from the question that we'll see on our ballots in November?
Well, Dave and Deanie, Proposition 2 remains on the ballot, but lawmakers say they plan to replace it either way when they meet for a special legislative session after Election Day. Let me walk you through some of the major changes here between the proposition and this compromise bill. Instead of dispensaries, there would be specialty pharmacies with licensed pharmacists. There would also be a state-owned central pharmacy where medical marijuana could be picked up. The compromise bill does not allow for marijuana edibles to be sold. It would also not allow residents to grow their own plants. Those in support of the proposition say that this compromise sends a clear message to patients.
That you aren't criminals. You're our brothers and sisters. And I'm happy that we can start this process to move that forward.
Those in support of Proposition 2 say they still want it to pass, but will de-escalate marketing efforts now that lawmakers are on board with a compromise. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which has urged Utahns to vote no on the initiative, said it would also back down on activities in opposition.
While the church remains opposed to Proposition 2, and we've encouraged folks to vote against it, we now join with the broader community in support of this community solution.
Republican leaders say the compromise cuts down on any unintended consequences.
We want to make sure that we are safeguarding public safety, to make sure that we're not undermining it, and that we're not seeing recreational marijuana.
I do feel like I could benefit from medical cannabis today.
Patients are cautiously optimistic, but worry if the agreement will stay intact after Election Day.
So the frustrating piece, I think, is patience, is hoping and praying that the legislature steps up and honors their piece of the deal.
Why don't we wait until the people have spoken?
One Democratic lawmaker had the same concern.
This can't be solved in a special session. We've been having this conversation for over 6 years now.
But those who crafted the Common Ground bill say the good faith agreement will move forward regardless of how Utahns vote on the proposition.
If it passes, we'll fix whatever problems are in the initiative. If it doesn't pass, we're going to come back together and create legislation that encompasses what we've already said we're going to do.
Lawmakers, of course, say that this compromise comes after months of intense debate. The Republicans say they've got the votes needed to pass this. But, Deanie, the Democrats tell me that they want to make sure there's a series of public hearings before the special session to make sure that the public can be involved.
What a move, huh? It's amazing if Utah does pass this, and I think it will pass. I thought it would be one of the last states, and it's quite interesting. They're willing to compromise and work things out for both sides. That's amazing. All right, so a couple more things here before we take a break and talk to ExtractCraft. Dr. Oz had Sanjay Gupta on the other day talking about CBD oil, and here is this report.
The latest health trend that everybody is talking about, CBD oil. Now, it comes from the cannabis plant, and many believe it can help with everything from anxiety and chronic pain to diabetes, even cancer. We're in the midst of a CBD oil boom, with products popping up everywhere. Today, Dr. Sanjay Gupta is here to investigate what exactly is CBD oil, and does it live up to the hype? But first, I asked correspondent Marcia Abacampo to find out how big CBD has truly become.
CBD. If you haven't heard of it yet, you probably will soon. The natural herb is taking the health world by storm, with sales of the new supplement expected to grow 700% in the next 2 years.
Wow, you just see great review after great review. I mean, people seem to love this stuff. 4,000 reviews, 4.5 stars.
Short for cannabidiol, CBD is a component of the cannabis plant. Yep, cannabis. But unlike marijuana, CBD does not contain any THC, the psychoactive part of the plant, so it doesn't get you high.
Over the last few years, CBD has started popping up in everything from gummies to face cream to toothpaste. There are even CBD treats for your pet.
So what does it do? Research has been limited, but proponents say CBD has all the benefits of medical marijuana without the intoxicating effects, helping with insomnia, pain management, and anxiety.
There's a revolution, a whole movement happening now with plant-based wellness, which is our primary interest, celebrating the power of all plants, which have not been properly represented.
And the question everyone asks is it legal?
Dr. Sanjay Gupta, CNN's medical correspondent, the chief one, and has reported on the latest research behind CBD. So if you know what, break this down for everybody. I'd like to take your thoughts on what it really is so people can get this into their heads.
Well, you think about the cannabis plant, marijuana, it's called cannabis. It really has lots of different ingredients, but two primary ones. One is THC. That's the stuff that's the recreational drug. It's what gets people high, gives them that euphoria. And there's CBD, which is cannabidiol. It's something that doesn't cause a psychoactive component. It's believed to be a medicine. It's been used as a medicine in decades past, and it's getting this resurgence, as you just heard.
Now, I disagree with Gupta there, saying that THC is a recreational part of cannabis. That's really totally ridiculous. It's really the THC, if you listen to Rick Simpson, that's helping people with cancer. CBD as well, but together, like Sanjay has said before, it's the entourage effect. But to say that THC is recreational is a bunch of bullshit. If you want to see more of that show, and I think the whole show was based on cannabis and CBD, it's the Dr. Oz show that was earlier this week. So, all right, so now let's, talking about CBD, here's a woman that says she failed a drug test after taking CBD oil. So you do have to be careful if you're in the workforce taking drug tests, because the real CBD does have low amounts of THC in it. Here is this.
Sophia, here at Discount Nutrition, I want to show you the wide variety of CBD products they have on hand. They are, of course, legal, and they're an effective nutritional supplement, but if you choose to use them, be careful. There's a slight chance you could test positive for marijuana.
It does have a small amount of THC in there, so it is a possibility that you could fail it.
Anthony Laborde told me he's a big fan of CBD and how it can help people with all sorts of ailments.
Anything from inflammation to pain to seizures.
It has only a trace amount of THC, the intoxicating compound in marijuana. It can't get you high, but can potentially be troublesome in a drug screening.
Some people will fail it, some people won't. So we do warn, especially police officers, firefighters, those types of people.
They're routinely tested.
Correct.
For drugs.
This woman, who wished to remain anonymous, would have liked such warning. Her doctor suggested taking CBD for pain and anxiety. She used this brand of CBD drops for just 2 weeks. Following a drug screening for a new job, the results left her numb. She reached out to me and asked us to alter her voice.
Expressed that I had a positive THC test, that I have never consumed marijuana in my life.
The product ingredient label showed no THC, but on the company website, a disclaimer said full spectrum CBD can cause positive results in screenings. She told me she didn't get the job.
Having to worry about something in your system that's illegal when you had no idea that it was in the product is absolutely unacceptable.
A web-based company that tests nutritional supplements, including CBD, says up to 10% of users test positive for THC.
But it can happen. And it also depends on not just the product, but also the person. Some people metabolize CBD differently.
Now, I'm told there are some CBD products that do not contain THC, but they're not nearly as effective as those that do. Live in Northeast Atlanta, Tom Regan Channel 2 Action News.
Tom, thanks. And we have more details now. Some pet owners are using CBD oil to help relieve their dogs' and cats' pain and anxiety. The supplements come in capsule or oil form. Veterinarians cannot recommend those supplements. The FDA has not approved the use of CBD oil in animals.
I'm not sure what state that was. I don't remember. But last week, by the way, California, Governor Brown signed some new laws that one of them will allow veterinarians to recommend and talk now about the use of CBD with their pets. And I've seen with my own eyes friends whose elderly pets are just doing absolutely incredible. Don't even hesitate. Just follow directions or use less than they say if you have any questions about that. All right, before we take a break, I have two more little things for you. This next one is Jim Cramer from CNBC. A quick little thing. The stock market, Canada stocks have been just going crazy. There's people making a lot of money. Of course, you have to know what you're doing, and you really should look at it in the long term. But here's Jim Cramer on what's been going on for the last few weeks and the future.
Yeah. What's the common thread with these guys? They're young, they're entrepreneurial. What else?
I think that they genuinely believe in the power of cannabis to stop opiates. They believe in the power of cannabis to be able to make it so that we are safer from violence at home because alcohol is such a big part of that. I think they believe in cannabis as a way to be able to have less drunk driving. But most importantly, I think they believe in cannabis because it's a heck of a lot healthier than everything else we put in our body.
And the market is just showing amazing things right now, but be careful again. All right, before we take our break and come back with Colby Zdyk from ExtractCraft, Rick Steves is a host of the PBS Travel Show, and he's traveling around now talking about marijuana legalization. This is coming from Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Thank you. In 5 weeks from right now, Michigan voters will decide if marijuana should be legal for recreational use in our state. The continuous debate surrounding this ballot initiative has attracted some national attention. In fact, tonight, the host of a PBS travel show came to West Michigan to speak out in favor of legalizing pot. News Channel 3's Rachel Glazer is in Grand Rapids, where a crowd gathered to hear what he had to say.
With a lot of conflicting statistics being tossed around in this debate, the travel guru focused in on what he's seen around the world and the impact legalized marijuana has had there and in his home state of Washington, telling the crowd here tonight that what Michigan decides is not only important for the state, but the rest of the country.
Reefer madness is over.
Not pro-pot, but anti-marijuana prohibition. Rick Steves says the gateway that leads down the wrong path is the criminalization of marijuana, not the drug itself.
The most dangerous thing about marijuana for a teenager is the fact that it's illegal.
The most recent numbers from Michigan State Police show about 25,000 people were arrested on marijuana charges in 2015.
We've got a law on the books now that is causing more problems than the drug that it's trying to save us from.
Some police, prosecutors, and health officials in the state warn legalized marijuana will make it easier for kids to get.
There's no question now we've got a track record.
Steves points to the 9 states in the U.S. where marijuana is legal for adults over the age of 21.
Teen use does not go up. DUIs don't go up, crime doesn't go up.
Tax revenue will grow by about $100 million a year, according to Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol, which supports legalization in Michigan.
Taking hundreds of millions of dollars of profit away from organized crime and putting it into your state's coffers so you can fix your roads, so you can help fund education.
To get a better idea of what legalized marijuana means from an economic standpoint, Ron Kitchens went to Nevada.
You can't take it across state lines. You can't bank the money. Anybody who believes this is an economic gold rush simply doesn't understand the basic laws and the power of economics.
CEO of Southwest Michigan First, which aims to create jobs and build a stronger local economy, Kitchens says the business and tourism boom in Colorado, the first state to get into the marijuana marketplace, is an anomaly.
The equivalent of Beanie Babies. where the market skyrockets, everybody's going to collect them, and then a year later you realize you got a closet full of Beanie Babies that aren't worth the 39 cents you paid for them.
Steves believes Michigan will be the tipping point for the Midwest and the rest of the country if voters approve the ballot initiative to legalize marijuana on November 6th. A recent survey found more than half of government officials in the state are against the legalization of marijuana, but ultimately it will be up to voters to decide, and the newest polls show that the majority of people are in favor of it. Reporting in Grand Rapids, Rachel Glazer.
Okay, that's from Michigan, and we're going to be right back with Colby from ExtractCraft. We're going to talk about the Source Turbo and his new product, the Ito Pro, which will save you money if you want to make your FICO or shatter or any ethanol extraction at home. We'll be right back after this.
It's all about the 420 MMJ Radio. The medical marijuana. The medical marijuana radio show.
Hi, this is Anthony Franjosi from the Honest Marijuana Company, and you're listening to Medical Marijuana Radio.
Okay, we're back, and the other day I had a chance to speak to Colby Zdyke from ExtractCraft, and we had him on about a year or so ago. We talked about the Source Turbo, which was his first home unit, and now he's got a really industrial one out as well. We're going to talk about both of these right now, and here is Colby from ExtractCraft.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Larry. Glad to be back. How you been?
Just great, man, and thank you. Now, I think you have an upgrade. This is really the home unit, so to speak, the Source Turbo. You've changed a little bit of that over the last year or so. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've been constantly developing the Source Turbo. We've never really stopped since we released it 2.5 years ago. So we've got a new upgraded lid that is now a slanted lid to provide easier runoff for the ethanol as it recondenses inside the unit. So constantly making changes to it. But now we have the new one coming, the Ito Pro.
Okay, so let's just touch more about, we're really going to be talking about both of these today, but the Source, the one that's for like medical patients or people that are in legal rec states. And by the way, you are from, I think you said Longmont, Colorado, so you're obviously in the leading state in this industry right now. So what this does is it helps reclaim the alcohol so that you don't have that great expense. The Everclear that I use over the years, and I've made hundreds of extractions this way, just gets alcohol, just gets off into the air, just gets heated up and evaporated. And that's expensive because it's about $50 for a big half gallon.
Half gallon.
Yeah. So to reclaim this and to reclaim like over 90% is really helpful. So tell us about the Source Turbo, and then we'll talk about the Ito after that.
Yeah, so we originally designed the Source Turbo to basically be the at-home extractor for people to make their own personal extracts. It's not really designed to do any sort of volume or commercial level. It's going to do roughly 1 to 2 ounces of material at a time. So perfect for the kitchen counter. You can do it right in your home. Everything's under vacuum. So the vacuum provides us with 3 main points, one being making it safe. You don't have to deal with the, potentially dangerous fumes that come with evaporating alcohol. The second is that vacuum allows us to drop that boiling temperature of the alcohol from normal, if you were just evaporating, let's say, in a crock pot or on a hot plate or something like that. It would normally have to be at about 173 degrees Fahrenheit in order to evaporate off. With the vacuum, we can actually boil that alcohol down to roughly 100 degrees Fahrenheit, which in turn will make your medicine much, much more potent by not cooking anything off.
Okay, so let's talk again. You just said about the volume of what you can evaporate off. Okay, are we talking about ounces or liters? You said we're not talking about. I want people not to be misinformed. We're not talking about the hard material itself. We're talking about after you make that extract from using frozen cannabis and using frozen alcohol. You make that extract first, and then it goes into this machine to be evaporated off, right?
Correct. You make the tincture, the alcohol-based tincture that then would need to be evaporated off. So
the actual extraction itself. You make an extraction, then that extraction and goes into to this for reclamation. So, what is the capacity liquid-wise in the vessel in this source?
Roughly 300 milliliters at a time. So 10 ounces of liquid at a time, and that will equate to washing or soaking roughly 1 to 2 ounces of dried plant material.
Okay, great. Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, my technique is to actually shake it very slowly for that 3 minutes that some of your videos are talking about. And again, you also showed in one of the videos that soaking it does bring more plant matter in, and it's a little greener and so forth. So give me an idea. So if you're using, let's say, 2 ounces of plant material, that's about 56 grams. You've made your extraction. You've got your 10 ounces or so of alcohol. Tell me about the procedure and how long it takes to get all that alcohol off.
Yep. So basically, after you've done your wash, as we call it, or your soak, and you strain that alcohol off, and then you filter it, then it's ready to go into the source. You put it into the source, and the source then will just create a vacuum and start evaporating the alcohol, and then recondensing it inside the machine, and then recollecting it in the globe. So everything's done all inside the machine. And basically, it's going to take about 3 hours to go through that 300 milliliters. So about 3 hours to get down to oil.
So is there anything to do while you're doing that? Do you have to keep a close eye on it? Can you walk away for 3 hours? Do you need to, what's the procedure while you're making it?
Yeah, you don't really have to. You don't have to stand there and watch it. The beautiful part is we make it all out of glass, so you can see exactly what's happening on the inside of the machine. But you don't have to stand there and watch it. Nope, not at all. We want you to attend to the machine. Don't just leave the machine and go off for the day. But you don't necessarily have to stand over it. The machine will turn off itself after 2 hours. It's a safety feature. So just in case, we always laugh because they're users, so we don't want them to forget that they were running their extraction and just cook it all the way down. So we have a 2 hour safety shut off where then you would come back and restart the machine for roughly about another hour, and that's really when you need to pay attention to it the most.
Okay, so you said you have a lot of users by now, I'm sure. Okay, and now you have a device, a Bluetooth hookup, so that you can actually control this from either an iPhone or an Android, right?
Correct. It's not to actually do the controls. It's really just to monitor the process. So, it lets you know what your vacuum level, your heat, elevation, all that kind of stuff is.
I'm going to ask you a strange question no one's probably asked you before, but I'm sure you must have a forum on your website where people are asking you questions and they're saying, hey, do you have some advice on this, right? So have you learned anything from an end user that they figured out that maybe you didn't?
Actually we did. One of the early on, one of the best things I had heard was one of my end users telling me about a Buchner funnel. I didn't know anything about a Buchner funnel for filtration.
That's ceramic, right?
Yep, it'd be a glass flask with a ceramic funnel and then the filter papers. And it's a vacuum-assisted filtration setup that laboratories use. And it really makes a large impact on how well you filter that and get all that fine material out. But it also helps to filter out a lot of the fats and lipids and waxes of the plant material. So that way that doesn't end up in your extract.
Right. When I do it, I use unbleached coffee filters, and I go through 2 coffee filters, to do mine. I just do it once though. I don't run it twice. All right. So this has been out for a while, and the retail on it is $4.99. Do you have any current? $5.99. Do you have any current coupons or sales going on this Source Turbo?
At the moment, we have a $50 off coupon going, which the coupon code is EC2018, so EC2018, for $50 off at the moment.
Well, that's really fabulous. And looking at this, people, you can really save a lot of money. I think in reading this, the Source Turbo, the home unit, the smaller one, where you could make, if you're making 2 ounces of, if using 2 ounces of plant matter, that's about 56 grams. You should at least get 10% return, is my guess. What are you finding? More than that? Are you getting more than that?
It always depends on the quality of the material and how much oil the material has to give up.
Without a doubt.
But typically, depending on how you soak it, and like we had talked a little bit about doing a quick soak versus a longer soak. A quick soak's going to have a little bit lower of a yield. A longer soak will have a bit bigger. So if we're trying to create something that's a little more cleaner for vaporizing or using for smokable cartridges, things like that, typically if you're doing that frozen quick wash, you're going to end up in 13 to 18% yield on good flour. Trim obviously would be much lower, but if you're doing more of a full extract, creating a FICO end product, you can easily get into that 20-25% range.
Wow, that's really high, and I'm amazed at that. How great is that? So, I mean, at 10% using 2 ounces in this small machine, you're going to get at least 5.5 grams back. Okay, and that's very, very good, by the way. But getting 15 or 18%, that would just absolutely be amazing. Is there any different techniques towards the end of this that would create either? You just said FICO, of course, which is great, but of course that needs to be decarbed. For up to at least at least 200 degrees for a few hours to decarb it if you're going to eat it. Now, if you're going to smoke it, are there any techniques that your end users are using to get either can they get a shatter type end result out of this by doing something, or are there different, what can you get out of this? What are the different forms?
Absolutely. So the first thing is you're going to create the base oil, and that's what the machine's really doing, is it creates the base oil, which is the form of every extraction, how it starts. First you create the base oil, and then you can purge it further, which is post-processing. You can purge it to whatever consistency you want. So if you want to take it down to, call it like a snap and pull type wax, you can do that. Or you can take it, and purge it down to a shatter. It's really just a matter of, heat and a little bit of heat, or just time under vacuum to help get it to that next step. But even without a secondary vacuum chamber or vacuum oven, you can really get there with just a little bit of heat or with a little bit of air dry. You just need to be patient to let the oil get to that consistency.
Right. Of course, keeping it in the freezer or refrigerator also helps change the consistency of it to allow you to use it in different devices without it being too loose and gooey and so forth. So I can get that. Okay. So now let's move over to your new product, which is about to be released in the next 4 weeks or so. This is the Ito Pro. It's coming out in a couple weeks in November. This is more of for heavier users and even industrial, I would say, because you can do, it looks like, up to about 16 ounces of dry material. You do that extraction first, and then this is going to hold about 4 liters of the alcohol. And what kind of return on this system can you get with the alcohol?
Same thing. The Source does about 95% with Ito reclamation of the alcohol. With Ito Pro, we're even a little bit better. It's a little almost about 98% reclaiming of the alcohol. So you're getting almost all of it back.
So tell me about the name. Why Ito Pro? That's ETOH Pro. Why the name? What's that mean?
Ito is the shorthand for ethanol.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense.
So, shorthand for ethanol is how we came up with it.
Okay, now you tell us about that machine, and obviously you learned a lot from making the first one, the little one, and you put a lot of that knowledge into this. So tell me about this machine.
Yeah, so one thing that we'd found, and we'd always kind of had an idea to create a bigger machine, but the Source Turbo was great for a lot of people, but some growers are they just have a lot more material to run, and the Source Turbo was just a little too small for them, and so that's where we kind of we wanted to go to the next step up with Edo Pro. So Edo Pro, it has the capacity to do up to 4 liters of alcohol, which equates to roughly 12 to 16 ounces of dry material that you processed. With Edo Pro, really, I like to think of it as a caregiver level. It's for that caregiver that has multiple patients that they're growing for and everything else, and they need to make oil for. So Edo Pro, definitely designed to do, large batches. It'll do roughly, call it a pound of material in about 3 hours. It evaporates roughly about that 4 liters in 3 hours. But the beautiful part about Edo Pro is it basically is a rotovap shrunken down into an appliance that is 1 button and 1 dial for temperature.
All right,
so,
what's a rotovap? I don't know that term.
A rotovap would be an alcohol extraction system, under vacuum, just like Edo Pro and the Source, under vacuum, low temperature evaporation, and then being able to reclaim it. It's kind of one of those big glass laboratory kind of looking things that you see.
All right, and the other thing is, listen, we're in the United States. We don't know from liters, so 4 liters would be equal to, how much of a gallon or ounces or what?
1 gallon. 1 gallon of alcohol equates to, because 1 gallon is like 3.7 liters. So it's about roughly 1 gallon of alcohol.
Okay, so easily somebody could use one of those half-gallon $50 bottles of Everclear, and you're going to get 98% of that back.
Right.
And then, of course, let's go through it a little bit. In looking at your videos, what's it being reclaimed into? And
Yep. So Edo Pro actually has a condenser built into the appliance. So as the alcohol evaporates and pulls through the hose on the lid, it goes into the appliance, into the condenser, and then actually just simply kicks back into a regular wide mouth mason jar for collection.
So you're collecting actually on the side with tubes that are running into that.
Yep.
And I guess the most important thing to do is, I guess, to have a large enough reclaim vessel, mason jar, so that you don't have to change it out, I think would be the best way to do it, right?
Yep, and they make, we use the half-gallon jars, and at that point, if, let's say, you put a full gallon into the machine, you would have to switch it out halfway and put a new jar in, new collection jar.
Have you tried making like a Y-shaped thing so that's actually filling up 2 jars at once if you know you're running a gallon?
We have tried that, and we're not going to release that initially, but that might be something that we have down the road. The other thing you can actually do is just get a wide mouth gallon jar. They do make those too, so you could just put a wide mouth gallon jar on there.
Yeah, that's what I would suggest to people, just so you don't have to go through stopping the machine and so forth. So all right, now both of these machines, including the first one, I believe has like an elevation setting, right, to help with
Correct.
tell us about that and why you have that on there.
Yep. When you're dealing with heat and vacuum, you're trying to get a consistent temperature. You're really also dealing with other variables such as barometric pressure. So people at sea level, no different than when you cook on your stove. Cooking temperatures are different if you're at sea level versus in the mountains. If I was trying to boil water, for example. So with the elevation setting and the altitude tuning, what you can do is you can set your elevation, and it sets for every 1,000 feet. So you just round to whatever 1,000 feet you're closest to, and that will basically give everybody, regardless of where they're at, the same consistent temperatures as they evaporate off the alcohol.
Okay, so once it's evaporated off in the Edo Pro, what is it? A stainless steel vessel that the oil is left in, and then how easy is that to scrape out, and what should people do from there?
At that point, basically, you're just going to take a spatula and harvest the oil right out of the chamber, out of the kettle. Because it'll be down to an oil form. The beautiful part about Ito is once all the alcohol has evaporated, that oil will still stay at that temperature that we evaporated out. Let's say it was roughly 100 degrees Fahrenheit. That alcohol or that oil then will sit there and just hover at 100 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can simply pull off the kettle and just take a spatula and no different than you would a big pot, just get the oil out, harvest it that way.
So, have you ever had that oil at that point in time tested to see if there's any residual alcohol in it, or does it require a little bit more evaporation or bubbling off, or before even decarbing, would you say?
When it comes to residual alcohol, Ito's not really determining that. That's really determined by when the user removes the oil. Some will remove it when it's still a little bit loose. Others will remove it when it's a little further along. What you're referring to, though, is really a post-processing, step that requires, if you are, let's say you're using it for edibles, there's really no reason to do a post-processing step simply because that alcohol will evaporate when you cook with it. If you were trying to create more of a smokable shatter-like product, that's where Ito Pro doubles as a heated vac chamber. So you can put it back under vacuum, heat it up to roughly anywhere between about 85 and 110 degrees, and then evaporate off the residual alcohol. So it kind of is up to the end user at what point they want that oil.
So that would be the last thing you described would be more of a smokable product, and then
correct.
Previous to that, it would be an edible product, which has to be decarbed up to maybe 200 degrees for a little period of time. Some people do it for 20 minutes, some people do it for a half hour or even an hour to get all the THCA and the other acid forms of cannabinoids activated for eating. So people, you're going to go through a big process, so make sure if you're going to make capsules or eat it that you do decarb it, or else you're not going to get the effect that you're looking for. Now, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, I typically like to decarb the oil after I've created it, rather than decarbing the flour before I soak it.
I totally agree. I think you could accidentally get, not accidentally, you're going to get rid of some terpenes and flavonoids and so forth if you decarb the material before you make the extraction. So I think you're absolutely right on that. All right, so the Ito Pro, you're having a pre-sale right now. It's listed at $19.99. Now, people, you realize that you're going to be saving hundreds and hundreds of dollars right away just by reclaiming that alcohol and being able to use it over and over again. So that's just amazing to me. What kind of a pre-ordering deal do you have going on now?
So what we're doing is the units will be available for delivery in November. So currently we're running a $400 off pre-sale price of $15.99. So as you mentioned, regular retail price of $19.99. So right now you can get it at $15.99.
And does that also count for how long? When does that pre-order deal end?
We actually kind of extended it longer than we were originally planning, simply because we did get backed up on the delivery date from October into November. So we're still offering it. We don't really have a set date on when it's going to end. I would imagine we'll probably sometime in October.
Anything else you'd like to tell us about either one of these products?
Ito Pro, that's going to be the one everybody's really been looking for. Mainly because you can do up to a gallon, but doesn't mean you have to do a gallon at a time. You can do as little as a liter, or a quart. Jar. You don't have to do up to a gallon at a time. But Ito Pro is really the one that people are looking for, simply because it's a 2-in-1 system, being able to do the evaporation and reclaiming of the alcohol, along with being your secondary post-processing vacuum chamber, heated vac chamber to do your purge, to shatter. There's no system on the market like it. And it's kind of funny, we've been shipping the Source Turbo now for 2.5 years, and we still are in a league of our own as far as the machines that are available out there for people, and as far as the technology and being at a low cost for that home user. So yeah, I'm still pretty proud about that.
Right, and you should be, because it's really very helpful. Cannabis is sort of still very expensive at this point in time, especially for medical people that use it for medicine, and to have something that they can really save a lot of money and use that towards buying, more product to extract. It's just a wonderful thing that you guys have done. So people go to ExtractCraft.com. You can hit on store. You can take a look at this. Also go to YouTube, and they have a channel there with some videos showing you the product as well. So,
and Larry, I can't remember. Are you in our Facebook user group also?
I don't know that I am, but tell us, how can people go look at the Facebook user group? What's it called?
Yes, we have over 5,000 members. The Facebook user group, it's a closed group, so nobody can see what you're posting in there, none of your friends or anything like that. So it's a closed group, but it's just called ExtractCraft Users Group. And roughly almost 5,400 users in there now, and sharing ideas on how to do everything from making cartridges, making a cleaner smokable wax, or edibles or FICO, pretty much anything and everything. A very, very helpful and informative group.
Wow.
So highly recommend people go there.
So what are people saying about making cartridges what are they using to thin it out a little bit? Are they using terpenes or?
Yeah, a lot of people use terpenes. We are big fans of viscosity from True Terpenes. It's expensive, but very high quality product.
Right. I'm totally against propylene glycol, PGP.
Agreed.
Vegetable glycerin.
VG.
MCT oil. You cannot smoke that stuff. It's not good. And the other thing that I talk about on this show all the time is that be careful if you are making your own cartridges not to add back too much terpene, because it can give you a really harsh cough in the back of your throat. So there's a fine line where they're thinning that out. So okay,
and that's what a big portion of our group is dedicated to, because that's what a lot of our users are doing, is making cartridges with their end product.
Well, it's such a great way to medicate, and if you have to be out in public, not in public because you can't smoke in public, but you have to be away from home, it's a good way to go. So again, that's extractcraft.com. Colby Zedek, thank you very much, and hope to have you back again when you make some other new inventions. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Larry. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. We'll be right back after this. Well, I want to thank Colby from ExtractCraft. Check out the Source Turbo and the Ito Pro. Amazing products that really will help you save a lot of money. Also want to thank my two radio mentors, both with the initials HS. Thank you for your inspiration. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, if you're a patient, an activist, an advocate, if you have a story to tell, a product to sell, write us at info@mmjradio.com. Again, info@mmjradio.com. You can also see our older shows at medicalmarijuanaradio.com and mmjradio.com. My YouTube channel is LSLove88. On SoundCloud, we're MMJ Radio, and also on Spreaker, MMJ Radio. CannabisTube.net, we have a channel, and also on NowTV.com, channel 937. And the Canna channel, I know I keep saying this, coming soon.
Yes, you medical marijuana for you and me. The medical marijuana. Shalabah. Shalom.
In chaos where it needs to be. Oh yeah, and fuck Trump.